This is Ghostwire Tokyo. We're here on Xbox Series X. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So what are we getting here on the title? Well, there are quite a few different modes available for the game in regards to performance, quality, how it looks, how it plays, how it runs. Very similar, or well, basically the exact same to what we had when the game first launched on the PlayStation 5. But the Xbox, now own title finally comes home, and we get to enjoy it on the platform. So, in the options, there are a ton of different modes. Now, I think I might have slightly glitched it because I, kind of swapped HDMI cords, because these settings typically don't showcase unless you have a VRR enabled display. So I know that sounds weird, but when I'm recording, I don't get like VRR options, if that makes sense. So anyways, let's dive in quickly. Let's just talk about the different options. So quality mode that we're going to turn on here, just so you can see it. Quality mode is a dynamic 4K resolution at 30 FPS with ray tracing. That is ray traced reflections and shadows on some surfaces in some situations. So that will be a big change for people, is seeing kind of the ray tracing in action in regards to kind of witnessing a very, very good, like it's an artistic but also very more realistic stylized take on, kind of this world and stuff like that. So just quickly kind of taking a look at the reflection of the yellow of the little sign there, we're just going to switch back over to the performance mode just so you can kind of maybe get like a quick idea of the difference there and how it's done. Seeing how it's now kind of like, it's not a true reflection. So for performance mode, it's a dynamic, again, 4K resolution, likely maybe a little bit more of a dip, 60 FPS with no ray tracing effects applied. So that is the big difference there. And there are numerous options that are present, and you're going to see them kind of shown throughout the video because, again, the way this is done and how I have to record this, I have to overlay clips of things running with the VRR enabled settings because of the high frame rate in order to properly show it. But keep in mind, YouTube doesn't support under 20 FPS. I can't record at it, but I do play at it and then record what is being shown. So we got HFR quality mode, we've got HFR performance mode, we have HFR quality mode VSync, and we have HFR performance mode VSync as well. So the big difference here for these particular modes is that all of them run at like an uncapped frame rate. So what that means is you're getting up to 120 FPS. Quality mode continues with the ray trace settings we kind of mentioned. Performance mode without the ray trace settings, those modes are 1080p up to 120 FPS. So again, you'll kind of be seeing clips of those throughout our gameplay just so that you get an idea of how they look and how they play and everything like that. So it should be mentioned that gameplay-wise, this was one that had like performant type issues no matter how you went about it on the PlayStation side of things. That is still essentially kind of the same here. It does seem to be a little bit better from the different modes. When I was kind of testing them out, it seems to run a little bit better, a little bit smoother. But I do personally suggest like playing the performance mode. And if you do have a VRR enabled, which is variable refresh rate enabled display, kind of get that kicking because that's going to be helping smooth out the actual, kind of gameplay in every mode. Because even regular performance mode, it still doesn't necessarily feel perfect. Like, it feels pretty good, but it doesn't necessarily feel perfect. So just keep that in mind, gameplay-wise. There's also spatial sound and Dolby Atmos support. There's HDR support. I will mention that just kind of talking about the high frame rate modes further, those ones, I don't think they really get fully up to the high frame rate option that is present, but they do run a bit better. And it is neat to have a quality mode that is kind of uncapped. I do think it is, to a degree playable on the quality high frame rate mode. You might want to kind of, use VSync if you want to make sure things are like, you know, a little bit more locked, if that makes sense. That is an option, and that is the whole point of the game, is to give you a bunch of different options when it comes to performance, gameplay quality, and everything like that. And yeah, this game is really, really quite in-depth when it comes to the different, like, current gen options when it comes to visual choices. And I think it's excellent that we get so many options, but it can definitely be overwhelming for a lot of individuals, you know, because there's just so many choices. And that's why it also took up such a big chunk of, like, kind of the review chat for this one, is because there's just so many options present. So they all have, you know, issues here or there, but in the open world, they're not too bad. They seem decently, you know, well going when it comes to performance and stuff like that. So I hope that kind of just gives you a little bit of context into what those offer and the different settings that are present in that regard. So let's talk about the game. So Ghostwire Tokyo was something that I actually really enjoyed when I played it. It's got a decent gameplay length to it, at least several hours, and then there's, you know, it's an open world, so like the current area I'm in is just like a tiny, tiny section, like literally like the whole map that I'm kind of scrolling through right now. You can go to like all the stuff where there's like kind of streets showing through. Like it is actually a very, very large play space. There's a lot you can see and a lot you can do in it. Outside of just finishing the story, there's like side missions, side objectives. There's also this new sort of like spiders, whatever sort of thing that they've added, which is now a main menu option where you do like a gauntlet battle. And they've also added some of those spider type things into the regular game as well. There's like extra new stuff you can do, which is quite nice. There's also a photo mode, which is currently locked for me. So that's great that the photo mode is locked at this particular time. I think we have to go back to the open world landscape for that. But yeah, the photo mode is kind of cool. It's been upgraded to the photo mode. So if you've, you know, kind of done this in the past, you've played this game prior. Oh, and the rain also hurts the performance quite a bit too. In case you're wondering, like, it is a little bit even more intensive when you do have the rain kind of going on. But yeah, there's selfie mode. Actually, I got an achievement for doing that. That's hilarious. There's FOV you can choose within that. There's, you know, there's a lot of different things you can do. Different filters, different frames. There's, you know, it's a really in-depth sort of photo mode in that regard. There's also a filter mode. So if you want to do like, you know, a couple filters for the gameplay, that option is present there. You can choose language options as well. There's lots of control settings, UI settings. We talked about all the graphics. Film grain adjustments can be made as well. And we did turn off the music just in case there's any problems in doing this sort of thing. But yeah, it's quite an experience because there's a lot to this game. So I kind of talked about sort of the outline thing. But when it comes to the story, you are essentially this individual that is racing to a hospital. There's a family member. And, you know, involved in that regard that you're trying to connect with. And then something bad happens, you kind of get up, you've got this, like, darkness around your face and everything like that. And, you know, your character's freaking out, and then all of a sudden there's this mist that comes in. And this mist basically, you know, kind of makes everyone disappear that's a regular person. And then you are then, you know, trying to figure out what's going on. You've got this voice in your head, and then it's just kind of a bit of a mystery. Like, it's a psychological thriller to a degree. In a finger blaster game, you do a lot of finger blasting, obviously, with your magical spells. And it's just, to me, it's a really intriguing sort of thing with, like, fun, flashy, blasting combat, neat mechanics for, like, blocking and attacking. I just don't really have a lot of, like... It's really quite annoying because I don't have enough, like, shot points, if that makes sense. That's why I was kind of leaving the area, was to go and get more kind of, like, points things in order to actually attack these enemies. Because you got to build them up. Like, when you're a higher level, you have access to a lot more, I guess you would say, like, abilities, and you can store points and stuff a lot more effectively, and you get more powerful weapons and tools to use as well. So that's a big thing, is like improving your character through a plethora of different skill abilities. So that's a very an interesting element of it. And then you saw me kind of go to this phone booth, and the phone booth is where you are basically, after collecting souls, like maybe doing some side activities or doing some main stuff, you kind of bank those for XP after you like deliver them in. So yeah, getting back on hand with the story, you are trying to figure out what's going on, what's happening. There's weird, mysterious figures. You don't know who they are. The voice in your head is trying to, like, kind of fight a little bit with you. They're trying to, like, push you to do certain things. And then, you know, you got to figure out, is like, can this be, this is someone I can trust? What's happening with my family member? You know, what is the overall arcing narrative thing here? Why are there all these creatures and problems? You know, what is going on? And I actually found it really intriguing. And also, you see right here, the performance just, ugh, yeah, tanking a bit. But that's a big thing for this one, is kind of like the mystery element. And then I really love that this was like a self-contained type of story, if that makes sense. Like, so many stories are trying to set up so many other things, whereas this felt like a nice contained narrative that was like, it had a goal, it had your character work their way to become more powerful with the abilities they had, and then it had like a satisfying, conclusive arc to it. So I really did, you know, kind of appreciate the design and the setup of this that was present here. I really do think they did some neat things with this game. I had a lot of fun with it. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm sure you are. And you're always getting like new abilities, and that's what's like really cool about it, is you're visiting this like really beautiful, high quality, open world environment, and you're gaining new abilities that you can use to attack enemies, new elemental things, new... Okay, sorry, I just keep clicking that. I thought it was like a pop-up. I kept like shutting down. But you're gaining all of these new powers and stuff, and you get to, you know, kind of unleash them on others. You've got like a bow thing. So there's lots of like open world activities, and there's a lot of, you know, kind of hidden sort of side things you can do, and then there's your main narrative stuff. So you can move through it at a pretty fast pace if you'd like to, but at the same time, it is going to take you quite a while to actually still get through like the main narrative, because like I said, it's like really chunky for what is basically like a shooter game, if that makes sense. Like, you're not shooting, but you know, you're finger blasting, you're going pew 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 with your hands, and you're casting magic in what is very much a gun like shooter type way. So that's where I kind of make that comparison as to, you know, what this game is kind of like. We're gonna go back and we're gonna show off some more of the quality mode, just so you can see that in action further. There we go. And like I said, like it's definitely a game to try out different like performance type modes in it, because it is so interesting in that it effectively actually, you know, kind of uses it. It actually has you, you know, kind of be able to see different like benefits to it, the ray tracing, the, you know, having performance mode for the better actual level of fluidity, or trying out your fancy VRR screen, because there's so few games that actually give you such an array of like actual technical settings that you can play around with. So it's nice to have, you know, a game that actually uses all of the features and stuff, which is really, really cool. Gameplay wise, just to continue talking about it, I did like the different missions you had. I liked that the open world had, you know, kind of activities for you to take part in. You're probably hearing the vibration of the controller, and like honestly, it's not as good as it was on the DualSense by like a mile. You know, you could really, really feel it well in the DualSense, the vibrations. And still also there's these moments where you kind of open up certain things. Oh, these guys are so annoying. Yeah, you could open up these certain doors and these certain kind of locked areas by doing like a little touchpad thing. So that in this game's a little more awkward, so you just kind of, like, I just had the game just do it. You just click a button and the game just does it for you, so it's a little bit easier. But, yeah, no, it's kind of neat. Like, I think it transfers over well. And, like I said, I do personally feel that it does seem to actually, with that extra optimization time, run a little bit more cleanly, which is good, across the different modes. I'm not saying it's perfect by any means, as you've probably seen in the video too, but it does seem to be a little bit more performance in an area to area. But yeah, that vibration definitely does not feel quite as good across the controller. It's still cool, but it's not quite the same. But yeah, I like this game. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It had neat magic abilities. It had cool combat. I liked the sense of urgency in the story, but also the sense that this was like more of an intimate type tale, if that makes sense. Like, so many games and stuff and movies and whatnot are trying to create these big end of the world scenarios. And it's like, yeah, sure, it's not necessarily like the stakes are large to a degree. I mean, there's a big area of the city where everybody's kind of vanished into like ghostly apparatuses, but if you get what I'm mostly trying to say is, like, it does feel like a bit more of an intimate focus tale on this character and the issues this character is facing as he attempts to do what he wants to, like, what I mean, like, he's doing the right thing, quote unquote, but he's also very much acting in the interest of, like, he cares about his family member. He wants, he's trying to do the right thing for them. And then he's also got this extra voice in his head that's kind of like, hey, you need to do this, or there's bigger stakes. And it's a really interesting sort of adventure. There's not too many games out there quite like this, and I liked how strange it was. I guess maybe some might have different thoughts and everything like that, but whatever. I quite liked this one. I found it to be very different. I kind of enjoy, like, magic type games, and it's kind of like rare that we actually get sort of magic casting in this sort of way. They do not want me to get my cores ripped out of these other little girls. I'm here to rip out the hearts and souls of little gals. That's what I do. I finger blast. Sorry. But no, in all honesty, you're sitting here, you're going pew pew with your, like, little, finger type abilities, and you're, like, unleashing upon enemies, and you're doing different activities, and there's a good amount of game time to it, a good amount of gameplay to it. It's fun, it's enjoyable, it's flashy, it's filled with, like, cool particle effects. There's strange, bizarre moments that go through across the narrative. You can pet animals. There's some really strange, over-the-top stuff. It's not like a real traditional type game by any means. Like, it really does seem to go a little bit sort of out of the box of, like, familiar things that you would expect from other games. And I really did appreciate that. I liked that this one is really weird and different and strange. I actually genuinely found that to be, like, a nice sort of thing, that this wasn't just, some run-of-the-mill type thing. It tried to have, like, a bit of a weird mystery story to it. It tried to have weird, crazy effects going on in your screen. It really focuses on actually having some features that feel, that they take advantage of the console to a higher degree than other games do. And I think that's really great. So I do definitely stand by saying that I quite like this one. I had fun with it. It was weird, it was different, it enticed me to kind of sit there, work through the game, do the different stuff in the story. But it also enticed me to, like, go further in regards to, like, exploring stuff afterwards, doing some of the side missions, and, you kind of see some of the problems that different individuals have in life, and you get to see that from an afterlife perspective of unfinished ghouly business and stuff. Oh, and there's weird, creepy bosses and monsters and enemies, and strangely a lot of verticality and a good amount of challenge and a lot of surprises and twists and turns. So, yeah, I quite like this one. I do think it's worth checking out. And I do think they've done some nice, adjustments and improvements for the particular platform. So it's nice that this one is finally available because, it's an enjoyable experience.